Hello, Howland Hoover. This is Mr. Hain. This video goes along with 4th grade's mandala project. This one's really fun. I'm super sad that we're going to miss this one together in school because I always am amazed at what you guys come up with for this design and how meticulous you can be. So from the instructions, the mandalas are really, they have a mindfulness, a spiritualness to them because there's a lot of intricate work and where the artist really kind of focuses and just kind of pours himself into all the little lines and the shapes of this project. In the end, too, it has a very pleasing image because of the repetition of the patterns and the lines and the geometric shapes. So I'm going to show you how we're going to make one of these. There's a lot of variants that you can make on these and different edges. I'm going to show you how we can start with them round, and then you could almost have petal-like a flower shapes on the edges. But it should be a radial design, and a radial design is where the shape shares a center, and then it's rounded and radiates out from the center. Okay, like a hub of a wheel, the Target logo. All of those. So you want to find that would be helpful for this is a couple different sizes of circles around your house. So what I have for mine, if I bring you in here, I just have this quart of paint. I have this plumber's putty that I can use the lid there to trace, a little Mod Podge to trace to, and then a little cap of a lid. So that's 4 different sizes, and that's going to help me kind of make my mandala to start. Because the way I like to think about this, I think that works well, is if you start with big shapes, and then you're just breaking down those big shapes into smaller ones. And again, not really overthinking it, just kind of, okay, how can I make this smaller? I can do this. And then how can I change it? I can cut that in half. And I'll show you once we get into it, okay? All right, so let me bring in a little more above. You want to start with your biggest shape first. So put those to a side. I have my paint can here, lay that in the center. First thing I want to do, again, your biggest one, is carefully trace the outside edge. Okay, and again, as neat and as perfect as you can. Finding the center might be one of the hardest parts about this project. And there's a lot of different ways you can use math with a triangle, you can measure. But one way that I found that works pretty well is take your next shape, and you're going to put it here, look directly down, and you kind of want to eyeball all of the space around it, meaning like from here to here, here to here, here to here, and here to here. And get as close as you can. Okay, and if you have a ruler, you can then actually measure that distance all the way around. So this one, I am about 3/8. So I'll go over here on that line. It's pretty good. Rotate this. Yeah. Here might be a little shy. That's pretty good actually. So once you have that in place, hold it down and lightly trace around here, and repeat that process for all of your next smallest circles. So again, eyeballing that, measure it if you feel you need to. You can just, if it is out, like say it's out a little, there's more space here than here, you just gently work a little bit of time and just check it. Okay, so that one I feel is good right here. So take my time tracing that. Okay, then my last one, again, eyeball that in the center. I feel like that's pretty good. So trace this one. So take my time. Okay. Now a ruler is probably going to be very helpful for this project because of the straight lines that you might want to put in. Now what you're going to do is just start and just take these larger shapes which by that I mean like this circle is larger, the largest shape if you consider this circle to be its own shape. So what I'm going to do is break that down. So what I can do is draw an X through it. Now I have, it's like pieces of a pie. Okay, now I have 4 sections in that circle. So I took one, I broke it into 4s. How can I change that again? Put a line maybe down through here for the center. Now this large shape is broken up into other small ones. What I can do here then to make it interesting is I draw a point, trying to be as exact as possible. In each one. So now I've taken that circle and I broke it into 8 pieces, and then I drew the triangle shape in each one. I could take it one step further. Maybe I divide this in half on each one. And it's kind of endless. You could almost work on this forever, which again comes into that kind of like meditation, spiritual aspect. Once I have that filled in, maybe I'll go ahead and shade the right side of each one of those. You just kind of repeat this process until you feel good about it. You know, you're just going to decide. Sometimes that's the hardest part in art, is knowing when to stop. But I will say that it's usually better to take a piece of art too far than it is to stop short. Okay, so from here, if I want to keep working on that section, I can, or I can move on to this next one. Maybe this next one I use these lines as a guide, and I'm going to kind of make petal-like shapes. Go here, and then maybe I'll have to put a circle in here rather than using any existing lines. That's fine. Okay, so you could really be creative about this. And I really hope that when you guys make this, you really take it really far with the amount of details and the small portions, small lines you can make in here. So, say if I look at this, maybe I'll go back to that triangle shape to mimic the center. And then after that, and if you are going to Sharpie, once you get to some of these big areas down, like by the big areas I mean the circle, and maybe get the center started, and then you start to make these, then maybe you can jump right in with your Sharpie. Because if you make all these really small pencil lines, like maybe even I would do lines on each side of those, if you go to trace these with Sharpie afterwards, I do understand sometimes that can be a bit much, or it gets too many lines, like a little too confusing. So sometimes it's better just to jump right in with the Sharpie. And let's say you do, and you're doing something like this, and you make a mistake with the Sharpie, you could just fill this whole area in black and just color it all in and be like, okay, well, you know, I'll make all this black now. And then the viewer would never know, or jump down here and just make it have a matching side, like symmetrical, and be like, okay, well, that's fine, I can move on. Okay, so I'd keep going, I'd work on these sections. Don't think about it as a whole. I think it's better to be like, how can I just make this section into smaller pieces? And it's kind of fun that way. If you try to think about it as a whole, like how can I make all of this, all these detailed parts, I think that's a little too stressful. I'd rather just make the little parts at a time. The last part, though, on the outside edge, you could leave it as a perfect circle, or you could go ahead and again put in the petal shapes if you want. You know, if you want it to have like a, even if I have that negative space out here, you know, more of a petal or flower-like shape, or at least a more interesting edge than a circle is totally fine. Okay, I'll be excited to see what you guys make, and I'll see you soon.